Welcome back. This time we're talking about the premiere episode of Disney's new DuckTales reboot, which it gave the A Christmas Story treatment on Saturday, airing it for 24 hours straight on Disney XD. I've been looking forward to this premiere because everything I have seen up to this point has shown that Disney's actually caring about making a quality remake. I was a big fan of the original cartoon, which aired between 1987 and 1990, which was right around when the sort of golden age of Disney Channel animation, as far as my childhood is concerned, was happening, with shows like DuckTales, Tailspin, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, and Gummy Bears. Now, if you forced me to pick, I'd probably say Tailspin was my favorite, at least through my nostalgia goggles, but DuckTales was definitely a cartoon I enjoyed watching as well. Although some of my best memories involving DuckTales actually has to do with the original 1989 NES video game. One that I played for hours upon hours until finally beating it, which at that time I was not a great video game player, so there were not a huge number of games that I could say that I actually completed, but DuckTales definitely was one of those, and they remastered it and re-released it a few years ago. I was honestly a little afraid to go back to it for fear that nostalgia just would not live up to reality. And that was one thing I had a little bit of concern going into the new cartoon, whether or not it would hold up to my memories, and honestly, whether it really even needed to, because this is essentially for a new generation. But I do have to say, this is probably one of the best remakes of a childhood memory that I can think of. Disney has put forth a great marketing campaign to show just how much care has been put into this new show. From the video of the voice actors performing the song, to the various TV spots and other YouTube videos that they've been releasing over the past couple of months. Right up until this super mega release of the premiere episode. And this episode does do a good job of introducing all of the main characters and reintroducing these new versions of these characters for those who were fans of the original show. And for the most part, these characters are as we remembered them, with the obvious differences in voice actors. We have Scrooge McDuck, voiced by David Tennant, who is the wealthiest duck in the world. And as we learned through the course of this first episode, that he used to be a great adventurer, going out and finding treasure and rewriting history, until one day he hung it all up. At least until he is introduced to his three nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, voiced by Danny Pudi, Ben Schwartz, and Bobby Moynihan. They're living in the care of their Uncle Donald, voiced by Tony Anselmo, and have never actually met their great-uncle Scrooge. And of course, we also have Launchpad McQuack, voiced by Beck Bennett, who was introduced originally as Scrooge's driver and eventually becomes his pilot. The two characters who received the biggest changes in this series compared to the original is Mrs. Beakley, voiced by Toks Olagundoye, who works as Scrooge's, well, honestly, I'm not really exactly sure what her job title is. I just know that she's not his secretary. And her granddaughter, Webby, voiced by Kate Micucci, who appears will have a much greater role in this new version of the television series, joining the trio and Uncle Scrooge on their adventures rather than just wanting to go and being left behind all the time like she was in the original. So overall, I have to say I really enjoyed this 1 hour episode, which you can see where it would be split into two later on. Right now it's just collectively known as Episode 1, Woohoo, a play on the famous theme song, which is included in this new series as well. I do have to admit that I really haven't figured out which one is which as far as the three nephews go. There are color coordinated, and sooner or later I'll figure it out, but for now I really don't. I know once they start talking and I can hear their personalities which one is which, but I haven't really gotten the name to the personality yet. And I do have to admit, it did take a few moments for me to get used to David Tennant playing the voice of Scrooge McDuck. But it grew on me, and after a while I wasn't even thinking about it anymore. As far as the action, it was fun in this episode. The story kind of introduced all of the characters, got them all together, and sort of set them on this future path of going on many adventures. And in doing that, they had to get over a few emotional barriers here or there. And I'm glad that they were there, but they never tried to overplay those moments. There's a time when one of the nephews overhears Uncle Scrooge saying something rather negative about family, and it hurts him, and he kind of holds on to that and kind of throws it back at Uncle Scrooge later on in the episode. But it's not there like a lot of angst. It's not dragged out. It is dealt with, and they move on. And for a show like this, I'm glad they're going that way. I always get a little nervous especially when you have younger characters, that you're just gonna overdo the angst. Not that I was really expecting that in DuckTales, but when there's certain story beats that I've seen handled differently in other media, I always get a little nervous. So I was glad that they handled that the way they did. I also like how they introduced Scrooge McDuck as this former adventurer that a lot of people see as kind of washed up and old. And he was able to really prove himself to his nephews early on that no, he has some skills and really knows what he's doing. But not making him such that he doesn't need his nephews' help here or there. Another possible change is it appears that Donald Duck will be a more regular character. I'm not sure if he's going to be going on all of the adventures or not, but it does seem like he's going to be a more regular presence in the show. Speaking of our new adventures, that brings me back to Webby. I do like what they've done with her character, at least in this episode. She can really take care of herself. Her grandmother has taught her how to physically survive in this world. But she's also very, very sheltered. Like, she's never eaten a hamburger. So there will be some funny moments, as well as those limitations are going to keep her from being essentially a Mary Sue addition to the story. And I'm trying to keep this video spoiler free, but there is a development at the very end of the episode that I found very interesting, and I'm very curious to see where they're going to take that particular development. So all in all, this is about as good as I could have possibly hoped for a remake of a television show that I loved watching as a kid. It feels like a kid's show, but it also feels approachable as an older adult, trying to get some nostalgia factor out of it as well. They're not pandering to the older fans. It never feels like they're pandering, but it does feel like there's some homages and some winks here or there for people that they know are watching that are older. But it also feels like a strong, well-written kids show. There's no potty humor. There's no just stupid jokes here or there. It felt very smartly written for a kids show. And I appreciate that, both from the perspective of that I enjoy when kids shows actually treat kids with some respect, but also as an adult that is watching this and hoping that I can enjoy it as well, and so far I have. We don't get any more episodes until late September, but this was a great tease and first taste of this new show, and I really enjoyed it. So if you've seen this first episode, what did you think about it? And are you coming to it as a new fan or as someone who enjoyed the show back in the 80s? As always, you can subscribe to my channel, check out some of my other reviews, and until next time, I'll see you at the movies.